I have summoned myself. Mic check, mic check, mic check. Waiting for my sound. I have some. So, yeah, my sound is okay. Hope you all having a great day. What's it, Monday? Monday pump day or Monday dump and pump? The chart is looking green. I will zoom out real quick. There we go. Hope everyone is having a okay time during the world crisis situations. Okay, let's zoom out on the daily. I was setting up a short here and I missed my entry with I think $21 difference. So I missed my order block and then it got filled later. However, I canceled it over here. It also just didn't hit that TP there. But it was a nice play. Let's keep that one there and remove these. See how it ends up. Sometimes it's okay to paper trade, you know? Set trades like this and see what the outcome will be. Okay, let's zoom out on Bitcoin. We had this trend line. Okay, this is still ongoing and this is what we had. Dave, hello. Virtus, hello, what's up, man? Okay, so how are we looking? You can't say that we didn't saw this coming. We were expecting shorts. We were expecting that price had to go down before we could continue to push Bitcoin to that 180 over here somewhere, because we had the higher lows and the higher highs and the momentum of those starting from September 2023. Momentum has been reduced, as you can see over here. First push, second push, and third push, where over here we created a new all-time high. We have been looking to short Bitcoin for over quite some days and weeks, because what we want now is for Bitcoin price to go down before we can continue up. We need to get some fuel and then go sky high again. And this could go towards 94. Let me do the camera a bit more down. Okay. Yeah. Just give me a sec, guys. Just make sure this is all okay. Where we want price to go towards 94 point, let's say 94.2. That's basically our area that we want price to push down to before we can continue to go up. And this trend line is based on the 3-day trend line that we had already going on from point A to B, continued, and it touched over here where it had a bounce on a level from over here. Okay, zooming in, so we want the price to go down before we can continue up, and this could either go towards here or maybe even towards here at 85 somewhere. Okay, and we saw this coming for weeks. Now with this war and outside news has been pushing it even further. Okay, so we were already looking for shorts based on price action, and the outside news has been pushing it as well. So let's remove these alerts real quick. What kind of levels do we have open still? Okay, loads of lines and loads of gaps. I need to update them real quick, so let me do that. Rays can go into there. Horizontal line can go into levels, and the rest can go into the rest, obviously. So height. This is all there. Okay, perfect. Okay, just making it clear for myself. Michael Saylor bought the top again. He did. Is it some sort of buy low, sell high? I mean, buy high and sell low. Something like that. All right, so we have levels and we have our gaps open. Right now on the 3-day, let's zoom into the 1-day real quick. So we have multiple levels, and remove that. And basically what has happened, if we open the 12-hour time frame, we had a nice trend line happening over here. Point A, point B, 3 times touch points. Okay. Eventually what was happening, we created this lower low, which was our indication that price might shift. This was already beginning of June. Okay. We pushed up, we got a higher high based on this one, but not based on the very top. So it's a 50-50 there, okay? So this was our indication, and this is our final 50% confirmation, okay? That price is going down. We needed to see a lower low happening from over here. First it did it with a wick, so I was not convinced yet for price to push down. And we had that nice push up first. And also, that was also during a stream, I think that's also on Monday indeed, where at the very end, like the last 30 seconds, I mean the last 30 minutes, price jumped down to that point there again. And eventually we crashed all the way down. And this is also the moments when all of the stuff happened. So this is Friday, Friday and Saturday, very busy news and very much happening in the world, okay? Which is also pushing it. Because doing it like this, because all of that stuff happened, we basically had our final push down, and we have our confirmation again, where we created this new lower low. So eventually price will continue to do this now, okay, until we make a higher high and a higher low again, and then we can continue back up. This is then your indication, and this is your confirmation. Okay, so looking at Bitcoin right now, we are making a very good push in the last 12 hours and the last couple of hours as well. Wow. So we wanted to short over here, which I just missed, and then wanted to exit over here, which it also just missed. However, right now we are pushing up. Okay, so on the I see we need to update some lines. Do we need to update some lines? Not really. Let's remove the levels real quick, okay? It's a bit messy. Levels. There we go. This looks like a repeating pattern. It will repeat because we have the indication and confirmation. So price will be going up and retest on the previous high, which is in this case the price that made us break out. We created a daily gap over here at 104,600. So we will first of all push towards this 1 day gap if we have enough fuel, because we already created this lower low. Okay, so basically we are already in this kind of way moving up. So what we need to do now is either, now we don't want to go here. However, this is the first gap that it will take. So from here you can see some sort of a response, okay? However, what we really want to see now is something like this happening. And then we close again below. And why over here is simply because we have our hourly wicks open. So this is an hourly gap. This is an hourly gap. There is a big chance for price just to hit this and then continuation down. However, we need to be prepared and we need to wait for the confirmation before we go. Okay, so if we hit our face against this daily gap and we're getting a response, it will retest again, make some sort of a double top pattern, and then we have our confirmation, okay? Or you could place a limit order in with a stop loss. However, on the daily, if we are going to sell a limit on the daily and we want to have the stop loss above the high and not this wick, otherwise it will be this is also possible. Let's keep it that way. However, if it's going to push over here, it might fill this gap here as well. So in this case, we can place it somewhere down here and then the stop loss like so. This could be a short position, but again, we need to wait for the confirmation, okay, for Bitcoin to continue doing this. However, daily wise right now, we had war opening in the weekend. Well, it was already open. However, Trump opened fire on Iran, which was helping the weekend push down. Okay. So there's a lot of drama going inside of the world right now, and trading it basically on market on price action, so market structure. We could do it. However, the news, like for example, if there's another big attack going to happen, then this green candle will become a very big red candle, because this is a straight line, by the way. Nice. Because people are afraid to lose their possessions. Okay, so for example, if I'm close in like a country close by, and I'm going to get involved in this war, then I want to sell my bitcoins in case I'm not coming back. Okay, and this is obviously like maximum thinking. However, that's just a possibility nowadays. However, this is what we are looking for. So price action wise, we want to see a new lower high happening, and that lower high will be our position for us to short even further down. However, then it's important, just like always, that we need to close below the high. So this line over here is important because we cannot close above. Well, we can. That's not a big deal. However, then we are having another change of character here. Okay. So then we're gonna have to see, okay, are we going to create a new higher low this time then as well for continuation up or something like that, okay? It's just things that we need to take into consideration. But for now, this is what Bitcoin will do. This is the first gap that he wants to attack again, just like we had over here with this, basically, okay? Zooming in the 1 hour. Yeah, so we have still 43 minutes for this candle to be happening and to be closing above or below. So in that matter, we want to mark this as an important level and just to make sure this one here as well. So if price is going to push above this and close above this, above here, then we might have a small retest down and then continuation up into that 1 day gap that I just spoke about. Okay. Let's head into Ethereum, because Ethereum has been doing the same, however differently, okay? So Ethereum has been hitting a gap over here on the 1 hour. Let's see on the daily. Hello. Okay, let's see on the daily. On the daily, there's no gap at all over here. So over here we are, yes, here is a gap on the 1 hour, maybe 2 hours as well. However, it's made some sort of a level here. And that level is where price just hit this face against. Okay, yeah, this line is better now. So we said that if price is going to break out and close above, we have a big chance of continuation. However, this level over here was too strong and pushed the price back down, and it also didn't make that higher high based on this one here. So this made sure that this was actually the best location to short. We got back into that range and we broke through in the weekend as well with the war happening. We were hoping for this to happen, and now it has been jumping back up based on that level again. However, we want to see the gap being filled, giving us our confirmation that we are in a reversal mode before we can go back up again. And this is what I have wanted for a long time already, just like how I made the TA on April, where eventually we went sideways and then had a push up of 52%. Okay, so this is still what we want. What we could see from Ethereum here is, because we made that lower low hardly, we can either just have this and then continuation back down, or we can push up now, hit this gap and then continuation down. And then it's important as well, just like Bitcoin, that we need to close below the previous high. Okay. And as you can see, I'm not using any indicators. All of my indicators that I have and that I sometimes use for confirmations are always hidden. I will take, you know what, I will just talk with you. All of the indicators that I'm using is, I sometimes use this one. It's the VRVP, which is basically the volume range from the area I'm looking at, and then it's picking where most volume has been traded with. Okay, so where most people have had their orders placed. And you can see over here, this is a very big sell wall and a buy wall, so a very big level basically. So we can have a big response over here happening. So based on this indicator, we can expect price to push up and then hit this barrier and then drop down again. And you can use this to create your levels. So see over here where I didn't use it to create my levels because I already saw it over here. But it is confirming the level that I had. Okay. And as I'm looking at it right now, yeah, I still accept the levels that I have. Okay. The next one that I have is VWAP. I'm not a big fan of this. I'm not a big fan of it at all. It's a way how some people trade on their coins, but not on the higher time frame, because on the higher time frame it plays along. However, if you're trading it on the short time frame, let's say on a 3 minute, people sometimes use it to trade with. For example, over here where it pushed through, had a rebounds. Here it had a hit again on that VWAP, and then a possible long entry for people. However, I don't trade this, I don't like it. I sometimes use it to see if price is in an interesting price action and if it might do something with it. And I have the fair value gap. Me myself, I trade based on these gaps, on the lower gaps where we had a big impulse up. Just like here with a big impulse up. So this is a very nice gap that has been created on the 3 minute, okay? Some people trade on these ones where you place your entry in the middle of that fair value gap and your stop loss below the first candle of those three. And this is basically their trade. But in this case, it would have mean that if I place my entry over here, my stop loss would have been over here, and I would be in this trade. It's a nice way to, whenever you have this trend going, so it's a nice way to, template, trend line. It's a nice way to join the trend. However, there's always that possibility for price to push down and drop that trend line, okay? So I don't trade like this, however it's possible to trade and use it like that. And then we have our final indicator, and I'm going to show it towards you on the daily, and that's the smart money concept, which is basically the explanation about break of structure, change of character, strong low, high low, those kind of things, strong and weak low, and then strong and weak high. It's basically market structure where it tells you what it's doing like this, and whenever you have your first lower low, which is our indication, it's going to say, hey, we have a change of character. We're not following the same pattern over and over again like we have been doing over here and over here. It's basically saying, hey, we're going to shift. We have a change of character, we might shift. So this is your indication. And once we have that confirmation, is over here where this becomes a strong high because it pushed the price below this low and created that new lower low. But this is your indication then and your confirmation, and then obviously the price will continue down. Basically how I explain my higher high and higher low kind of things. Just like these arrows, it basically says all of it at the same time, okay? So as of right now, over here, we didn't have that change of character, simply because it didn't push above over here, okay? Let me get you a confirmation where it did. Okay, so it did over here, where price is going down, going down, going down, giving us the low, a new low, and eventually we created that new higher high over here. So in fact, from this high we pushed through And over here it already said, hey, we have a change of character, okay? Only the downside to this is that it's always too late. Or it's showing a change of a character over here. Well, this would have been your moment to step in, right? Okay. And I'm not sure if it's also showing a change of character over here. Maybe if I zoom in. Yeah, okay. So we had these push down all of the times, the lower highs and the lower lows, and eventually we had that push up where it broke this high, and then it automatically tells you, okay, we have a change of character. And this is very much zoomed out, and you can use it on the small timeline. However, don't trade on this. Basically, do your own research and decide your entries based on that. And I combine all of it. So I use market structure by looking at it like this: higher highs, lower lows, and then taking the entries on gaps. So we have this breakout of this trend happening as well. We had a breakout. We had a big range happening. We need to retest, and then we can continue going up. So we have this lower low, a new higher low, and now we need to hit this low again to create a bounce, which will basically tell us, hey, we need to create that new higher low before we can continue going up, just like we have on Bitcoin on the daily. Okay, so on Bitcoin over here as well, we need to create a new higher low before we can make that new higher high. Fortcoin is going crazy. Okay, this is the TA that we've been sharing since beginning of June, where we said, hey, from over here we might have a bounce, and eventually we had this first indication, confirmation, and I spoke about this on the streams as well. I think it was a day where I was streaming, I think, or just the day after, or the day before. It was somewhere over here, okay? And we said, like, okay, we created this indication. We need to make that lower high, and then we need to create a new lower low. And this is the simplest market structure you can basically have. So you have this uptrend going, momentum is lowering. Eventually, it created a trend line. It broke through the trend line, making that lower low where you have your indication, you have your confirmation whenever it made that lower high. And now we are in this downtrend basically. Okay. It's this simple. And based on this uptrend going, so based on it creating those higher highs, and the higher low, is basically you just drew a line, call it trend line like this, and if it breaks, it will retest and it will continue going down. It's like, well, it looks very simple. However, as you can see on the daily, and if you're going in the trade, it's going to go in red and in green. But if we zoom out, it's just science, and like it's repeating itself all the time. And if it's breaking the trend line, that retest is still happening, even though it's just a wick. And if I had my my short entry open based on the trend line and the open gap that we had, having your stop loss above the high or this high even doesn't really matter. It's still in, okay? And yes, this is on a daily, but if we zoom in on the hourly, what kind of areas do we see? So over here, for example, we have no more data from it, I think. Oh, okay. So over here, it created a head and shoulder pattern. That's an ugly head and shoulders. Your head and shoulder pattern, which reversed the price. Okay, so over here, it's creating this. I'm just going to zoom real tight here. Let's get let's circle this, dive into the 30 minutes. There we go. So because price has been going up, it made this lower low based on this. Eventually this is your indication, and then you have your confirmation, and your confirmation you could have placed your order here to go short. Okay, this would have been a perfect short entry here, basically because it made that lower low, and this big wick down would have given you loads of alerts, and you're going to open the trading view app, and you see this happening, and you're just going to set that order up. And if it stops you out, hey, okay, it stops you out, you have like a X% loss. However, if it didn't stop you out, where's your target? Okay, and basically the target that you're having on the 30 minute is this trend line happening, so this level here as well. So over here you have a gap, combine it with a trend line, combine it with a level and the trend line, because it's still following up this trend line, and it still made that higher high based on this. So we want to trade with the trend. So this would have been your target, and with the price going this way, it's still following the trend. So it's still following the lower high, still following lower high, lower high, lower low, lower low, lower low, and then it even pushed through and broke that trend line. Okay, and this is basically what you want. You have been entering the short over here, you're in this trade way early. When it hits this trend line and it breaks through, oh crap, and it breaks through, we're going to zoom out. Okay, what kind of gaps do we have open? We have a 1 day gap open over here. So this is the 1 day gap that we had. This was our first. We can take some portion of it over here. However, whenever it breaks through this trend line, we need to see a lower low, and it mostly creates a lower low or hits the gap. So this over here would have been a very nice TP, where you have 33.5% profit. Hello, Karma. And eventually, if you hold it even further, you could have seen the reversal happening over here and then exit, let's say over here, when you got convinced, okay, we created this lower low, now this price needs to go and create this lower high. So let's say you made 40% on this trade, and you're risking 1.25%. That's a risk to reward basically is 31.5. So let's say I've been trading this and I'm risking $100 here. With this trade only, you could have made 3,000 already. Looking at the risk to reward method. And then over here as well, on the daily, we created this new gap. So we had this push down, big push down, created this gap. We knew we created this lower low. We need to see a lower high happening. This is the gap open. And we need to also retest that trend line in this case. So combine it all to each other. You could have entered your new short over here until the new gap, which was basically over here. Okay. And over here now as well. So let's reduce it over here to there. So over here now as well, price is pushing up. So we had that bounce and we made this lower low based on this important line. We hit the gap just like over here in the top. Now we need price to push up, maybe hit this gap and then push down again further. Okay. So then we're moving up something like this. And this sideways. So this is what we need from Fart. And yes, it's a meme coin. However, don't tell me Mark Stricker isn't working over here. I saw this with this being created. I knew that it is hitting here and it is going to try and break below the low. And this was happening before Bitcoin was even going down. Bitcoin was still pushing up. Well, Fartcoin had this trend line breakout to the downside. So this is what we want now. I'm going to remove that one. So now we are going to see how far Fart will push up. And we need to make sure it's not going to close above on the daily. So we need to call it important. This is the 1 day gap. And over here we can set a new order for a short like this. Okay, so this is important. You can place the order like this and fingers crossed that it will work out for you. However, you can also just wait until you have your confirmation for price to go down. And with that, I mean confirmation into hitting the gap and price going down, you're going to enter somewhere over here or over here. You need to be careful because you have this level here as well. Take all of this in consideration and you're going to be profitable. Next target will be over here, first of all. Over here. Because over here we had this wick. So what we could see happening from Fartcoin now, for example, is this. And then eventually, obviously, that close on the bottom gap. Okay, so yes, it has been hit with a wick, but we need to see if it's not holding on still. If it's not going to give us that bounce back again. And if it does, we need to make sure that we're still making the lower highs over here. Okay? Copy this, drag it down here, because this is what we want basically. Okay, very nice example on Fart, obviously. Market structure playing out, combine it with the trend line levels and gaps, and you can trade very profitable multiple times just on going short. And why just on going short? Because this trend is down facing, okay? And you need to know that the trend is your friend. So if the price is going up like this, going short is risky. However, if you have confirmation, hey, we have a big push up and momentum losing, you can take the risk on taking the short here, and then you're you're in early, and you have managed your risk by using that stop loss. And I lost my words. You know what I mean? Like, trade with the trend. And if you're going to trade against it, you need to make sure that you're going to use a stop loss nicely. TXC getting listed on Maxi soon. You need to trade on BitUnix, my boy. There's BitUnix is a very nice exchange that we are using, and there's also in the link below where we have a win action to, well, not a win action. You can, like, everyone can win it and earn it. It's just a bonus that whenever you deposit or trade, you can earn up to 2,400. Down in the comments below, where you can basically just sign up using where you can just sign up and get your rewards. Okay. Okie dokie. But yeah, TXC. I haven't dived in TXC, I think. So let's see on how fast I can get this done, okay? Just going to search up a new coin, see how fast I can do the analysis. TXC? It's not a familiar coin. If it's not listed on Bybit either. Okay. I don't hope it's this. David, please tell me it's not this coin. Please confirm. If it's this coin, don't trade it. XMR. Oh. Use the correct words then. How do I get a Bugatti fast? Hello, Wessel. So what was it? XMR USDT. There you go. This is a better coin. I have been looking into this. Okay. But only with levels, I see. I'm going to restart then. How do I get a Bugatti fast? You sign up using the links below and you trade with me. I'm not kidding. Okay, so how is this looking on the 3 days? All-time high is over here. So let's call it all-time high. Zoom in on the dailies. And we're going to create all of the gaps first. So we have this gap on the top over here. 1 day gap. One day gap. Do we have one over here as well? 1 day gap. And now we're going to zoom in to the right. This has been filled. This one has been filled. Nice. Okay. So instead of that line, we're going to create a trend. Call it closed, because this gap has been closed now. Sailor is likely buying tops and reselling to drive it down, then buying again down lower. I mean, that's basically how the price works, right? Whenever price is doing this, you buy high, sell low, buy high, sell low. Basically how it works. I'm dragging these two trend lines to each other and this to each other because it's giving us multiple trend lines over here. Then I'm adding the gaps again. Yes, that wick touched it, however it didn't close, so we might still have some use. This gap. And then we have a final one over here. See, by the way, how that closed gap created a new gap, which means that the filled gap is still from use. So I'm going to make it like this and then add a new one over here. Oh, my bad. And call it gap. There you go. Okay. One final one over here. So these are the gaps that, you know, each gap has an impulse up, an impulse up, an impulse up. Eventually want that gap to be closed. And now we're going to look on the trend. So in what kind of trend are we? We are in a downtrend, yes. So over here we had this uptrend, eventually big push up. And then we created a lower low over here. So same situation like I show on any kind of coin. This is the trend you're having, where you have your first indication, your second confirmation, new lower low, new lower high, and so on. Okay, and yes, these are wicks. And if we're dragging it all along to the close candles, then it's more obvious in what kind of trend we are. We're not going to be using this one, so something like that. Okay, so this is the trend we're having based on this push up. So we had a big push up and eventually the price will go down, where it hit that first touch, second touch, third touch kinda, and then it was too much. Oh, now we need to refuel before we can continue going up. So new trend line has been made. Trend line. We can also draw the second, so the bottom of this, and see if we are creating some sort of a pattern here. Okay. Sometimes the pattern is working out like this, just like this, where it's giving us a reversal pattern. So this is a falling wedge. Yeah. And that will most likely reverse, push up, retest, and then continue up. So drawing both lines sometimes can define in what kind of pattern you are sitting with. It's not something we trade on, it's something we use along the trading session. Okay. Oh, my neighbor is smoking. Dave, are we looking to short or long here? I want you to reply and say, okay, are we going short or long whenever it's getting listed in your exchange? So based on this, are you going to be looking to short or are you going to look for longs? And there's a kind of a big delay, so I'll let you respond to it. And in the meantime, I will dive in a bit further in here, correct the lines. Yeah, that's fine. Point A, point B. Okay. Or if anyone else wants to answer it, that's also fine. Are we going long or short on this coin? Based on what kind of trend we are and what are we seeing? Gezondheid. Gezondheid. Alright, Verters, are we going long or short on this coin? Based looking on what's happening here. I was thinking of buying some. Okay. It is possible to buy for multiple reasons. So we had a touch of the gap over here. Okay, so we have this gap over here and we had a response. And if we even zoom out further, we might have a level over here. Okay. This downtrend is happening. This is the hourly downtrend line, and this is the hourly downtrend from the bottom. This is forming a so both lines are forming our compression now. We broke out of this trend, had a small retest. However, this gap is still open. Just like Bitcoin, this gap was still open for quite some time. Well, Bitcoin kept doing this and then hit it and then continued even further. Okay. So the compression is happening. I'd like to catch a potential long. Exactly. So we had our first bounce over here from this gap, which is a potential indication, but not yet the confirmation to go long based on the daily. Okay, based on the daily. We now need to see, are we going to break out from over here to the upside? This pattern is the falling wedge, which is a reversal pattern. Price is coming from above, consolidating and compressing downwards. So it's falling down and it's wedging into each other. So it's compressing, and like 80 or 90% of this price will turn around. If we, oh, sorry, my bad. And this one here as well. If we are going to zoom in now, so this is what we see. We see some sort of response happening over the black line, okay? So we are going to dive into the black line first. What is this black line? So we have a gap over here from the 1 hour. And that is also, so if I'm going to drag this line along from point A to there, you see it has been touching it multiple times. So this is a potential level if we dive in deeper, obviously. This could have been a level. I'm now just looking at gaps in this trend line. And then obviously the top of this might be your exact level, okay? Like so. Or maybe even a bit further down. But okay, yeah. Now we are going to see, okay, what kind of response did we have then? So we had that first response on the 1 hour. So this is that 1 hour gap that we just drew. So let's call it the 1 hour gap. We pushed up and we made based on this, we made a higher high. A higher high based on this tiny push over here on the hourly. What we have going on right now is we touched the next gap that it created when we pushed up. Okay, so this is that new gap, just like the 1 hour gap. We're just going to keep it there, and we see that it has touched it and closed above. Okay, indication, higher high, confirmation, higher low. So the fact that we pushed up here and had a bounce, we could have taken a long position on the gap with our stop loss below the low on the closed or in the wick. Let's be safe, let's do the wick. We are risking 85% with a potential of breaking above this higher high what happens if we break this higher high? We are breaking a trend line on the daily. On the daily, we can look for what kind of gap do we have open still. Okay, so this gap is open. We have this gap open and this gap open. Let me just correct it a bit better. There we go. And these gaps are obviously roughly that price. It's not going to hit that price exactly because it's on a daily. And on the daily you see each candle has wicks. But this is a potential long position because you had that hit. You had that hit, a push up. That gap got closed. It formed a higher low and price can continue going up again. So this could have been a long position if you were earlier on the hourly, obviously. Now we need to see, are we going to create a higher high based on this? Okay. Doing it will give us a double bottom pattern, which is a reversal pattern where we can get a response, so a break towards this 1 day gap. We can get a retest on this breakout, which is most likely the neckline of that double bottom for continuation up. Okay, so this scenario might be happening, and if it doesn't, and like if we're going into the long now and it is not going to, let's remove this real quick. If we're going long now and we are entering over here, we either need to have a stop loss in green whenever we are in green, or a very big stop loss. Okay, and this is not something that you want basically, because price can just stumble down now. If it doesn't make that higher high based on this, you are still going to continue the downtrend again. Then it will go down, try and make a it will first, like, it will hit over here, it will try to make a lower low or a higher low and then a push. However, this important line needs to be broken before this price will continue going up. Okay, so we're going to set that one back. We're going to keep it. This is still important. We need to make that higher high. If we create this higher high, we have next important lines, which are these 3 points. Okay. But indeed, Virtus and Tom, nice for the call. This would have been your long position to go up. Okay. And this is like, we started all over. This is the 1 day gap. We can still, if we don't break the trend line. Yeah, so if we don't break this trend line today or tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, and we're not making higher highs, then there's a big possibility for price to still push back towards that 1 day gap before it can push up through over here. And this is why it's so important. Sorry about that if you heard it. This is why it's so important to use a stop loss, because if it doesn't make a higher high here, it's a big possibility for it to continue down. And if you are looking in your coins all of the time and you see, hey, it's not making that higher high on the hourly here, let's give it 1 more hour and price is going to drop down over here again, you can say, okay, maybe this is the moment where I exit and still accept the 3.6% profit. Obviously you're trading with leverage or not. But obviously you're just closing the trade with profits. Sometimes closing it over here and finding out that the price continued back up could be a pain. However, imagine that you didn't close it and price kept going down. Okay, that is basically what is always the case and what can always happen. So if it does break the trend line, we are going to see our targets. This is a very nice 1 hour gap. This is a very nice 1 hour gap. Combine it with the 1 day gap, which is over here and over here. Just in the middle of these two, you have that 1 day gap. So then we're going to zoom out on the 1 day gap, where, like I said, this is your first target for it to break through. And yes, this could go like this, retest, and then go towards your target, and then hit this gap first, get a reversal, and then we go down. Because if we are going to be direct, we still have this trend line that got broken and it didn't got fully retested yet. This might have been that retest. However, if we retest this trend line, close that gap, we can have a big continuation down in order to close these gaps. So then we are going to see, okay, are we going to create that higher low over here, and then eventually create this higher high. So this is for later, and this is a potential for later as well. Towards the first gap. Let's keep it that way. So we're going to keep these sideways, like just on the sideline, so that we can look into it in the next stream, see how it's progressing. Jeez. Okay, is there another coin that you guys want to see? If so, let me know. Let's dive into TIA, the coin that everyone is so hyping about. However, there's no data, so don't trade it. Green candle, let's buy. No, don't. Get your confirmation. I need to see a higher high first before we're going to do anything here. If it's created higher high, we're most likely breaking out of this trend, re-entering the long, and then we're gonna push up. Market structure can be boring, and you see loads of these videos on YouTube as well, like I'm making X amount of money every month and it's boring, however it makes me money. Okay, cool. However, when I'm doing these TAs, it kind of looks the same. Like we are doing the TAs and it's looking so nicely, and it looks simple, even though it's not. Okay, sometimes I'm also still making mistakes here, and it's frustrating because whenever I'm doing the stream, I'm saying price will go down, and if I'm going long and trade against the trend line, I'm just losing money, and I think I'm just betting too much, because over here I was trading the short, sorry. I took this short and closed it on the first gap because I wanted to see this reversal to go up. However, I didn't wait for that confirmation, okay? I didn't wait for the confirmation. So if you're in a trade and your target, let's say, is this gap, and price is doing this, it's giving you a reversal pattern, and then exit, like, whenever it's giving you that confirmation, hey, we're not making that higher high, then I'm going to then I should decide, okay, I'm going to close this trade based on not you know, based on it not creating a higher high. However, if it doesn't, just what happened over here, where it didn't give us a confirmation, we should have kept the short. Hey, we made this lower low here. We might have a retest and continuation down. Doing this, we even broke the trend line that was over here. Keep that short open. And if we did, oh, my bad. If we did hold that short open and our target was that gap over here, hey, over here we see confirmation. So we're leaving the trade over here. 28%. You want me to look at hype? Let's go. But yeah, this would have been how we need to trade, and I'm not a big fan of a swing trader. This is all swing trading. These daily setups, but I think I should. All right, and all of these coins are, by the way, like all made TAs from and off. So see over here, we just like on SUI, we don't have much data, so price bouncing from here is just a level. It's best to trade coins with more data. So let's see if Hype has more data. Hype USDT. Hyper liquid. Oh. Okay, Tom, Virtus, or Dave, what are we doing? What are we seeing? I am just going to make some drawings. I want to know, are you guys looking to go in a long or in a short by looking at this coin? Okay, that's my question. And I'm just going to draw these things real quick. And I'm not going to give anything yet. Are we looking for the longs or are we looking for the shorts? Tom? We don't know? Long or short? Long or short? Pretty good trend line if you ask me. And another one. Another one bites the dust. And another one goes. Okay. No long or short. Alright, you don't know, that's fine. Okay. We are zoomed in now. Where we are still, like over here, we are making higher highs, higher lows. We had, oh, higher low. Then we got a lower high indication. We might go down. We didn't got the confirmation because we made a higher low. So this one is scrapped. Okay. So eventually this counts as a lower high, higher low. And then we had two new higher highs created. Okay. and obviously the low over here, and based on this is a low, and then new low created. Not really, this is still the low. So just based on these lines, this is the important line that we're looking at, which broke. We made this lower low based on this trend. Okay. So sorry, that's a big knack. So looking into this, we have multiple trend lines. This is 1, 2, 3, 4 touch points, and we broke through. With this being said, we created the 1 hour gap in here, in here, in here, and there. Okay, these are 1 hour gaps on the hourly for price going up. Daily wise, we're just having one daily gap over here. Yeah, this daily gap over here and over here. And now we need to look closer, because on the daily we didn't made that lower low on the daily. However, if we zoom in on the hourly, where are we then? So this is the low. Going to drag it all along. We didn't. How important. We did hit this low. So hourly wise, with this gap, so this is a 1 day gap, 1 hour gap, a nice hit for a possible long. Okay, and over here you have your confirmation. Because price went up, you have a response from the gap, where a new gap has been created. This gap has been created, which got closed. So this would have been your entry on 50-minute. Stop loss below the low. You had been stopped out. Because we have a weird wick. That's fine. Sometimes you gotta take the loss. And maybe you could have been re-entering the long based on this gap over here. Okay. Or this gap. This one. On the 15. Price has been hitting our 50-minute gap. What are we doing now and what is important here? Because this got hit by a wick, however it's important. Why? This range needs to break, like this range needs to break and make a higher high based on this important gap. So my bad. It needs to make a higher high. So let's make the line there. And we're going to give this the 50-minute gap. So it needs to be closing above the important line in order for this price to continue up. So we are looking both ways. Because we might, like, based on this, we are looking for a long, okay? But based on the outzoomed part, where we broke this trend line, we have a new change of character. We need to make a higher high. So we don't have a new change of character yet, but we need that to make that higher high. So price is this, retest, And maybe this is even enough. Or retest, and then here, and then price to go down. Because we broke out of this trend, it will retest the gap, or this gap, or these two gaps. And obviously we prefer the daily gaps because this is a daily trend line. So, oh crap. So if we are going to look closely, we want this price to hit the daily gap and then continue down. So we are long short. This is a long short position. Pump. And dump. Okay, like that. And if it's going to break out to the bottom, where are we going to focus upon? We have this daily gap, we have this daily gap, and we have this daily gap. So eventually your target could have been this very low, but I think I would have been happy with this trade already. This is something you can look forward to on this coin. Because it's very like Jip and Janneke, like very based black and white patterns. Like we are in an uptrend, we broke the trend line, we need to retest and then continuation down. It's that simple. It's not really complicated basically. Because in order for this price to continue like how it has been, which is basically this, we need to make that higher low. And this could be over here and a reversal. Like so. But it could also be over here and then a reversal up. Because this is basically what we want. Where price makes your higher low moment and your higher high to create that new all-time high basically. Trend line all-time high. Okay, I hope you know what to do with this coin now. If you are not in this coin at the moment, especially now, do not go long, do not go short. Why? We need to see it close above first, because if you're going long now and it's going to reject this gap, you're going down. Price will go here, retest this, and maybe push up then, but that's a maybe, okay? This is possible. So it needs to push up above the important line. I am going to dive in one more coin. Ripple. Because Ripple has been a pain in the guts. Ripple was following so nicely until the war. So Ripple was bullish until the war. So let's move this sideways real quick. On the daily, on Ripple, we had nice compression, okay? So, sorry, my bad, don't get lost. On the daily, we had higher low, higher high, eventually still a higher low, but then we made our indication, which is the lower high and the confirmation. Then we have a big day over here, March 2 and 3. 3 and 4. Yeah, something like that. I think there was something big with news. Basically, I'm not counting this. I'm simply counting this. Okay, and this is how I count it. From the top to this bottom is a trend. Okay. So this is the pattern. So we were in a downtrend here, and we broke out of this trend line, and those are just these 2 points connected further down to create that trend line. Okay, we had a break. So we had a nice push up. We had a break off the trend line. We made that higher high. So this moment, this line would have been important. We had to close above, which we did. And then we had to retrace. Okay, we need to, this trend line is nice. We made that higher high. We need to make a retest now because of the trend line breakout. So we need a retest. We had that retest down. This gap was closed very quickly over here. But this second day hit a other gap on the daily, which is this one, marked as closed. So this was for us a perfect long position, which didn't close perfectly because it didn't push up and didn't have enough fuel to push up, and this trend line was our resistance. So this could have been like a quick 7%. And then we had to see, okay, what is price going to do? And this is the moment where we are seeing in multiple coins like a head and shoulder pattern happening. So we were waiting on confirmation. The level, I mean the gap has been hit again, and if we zoom in or zoom out, this would have been your better entry, let's say over here, where you could have picked this one now. Okay, so that was our confirmed long, and we made this trend line breakout again, where we made a higher high. See, we made a higher high based on this. And then what happened? We had another retest. So you could have been entering here again. And then we didn't make that higher high. We had a rejection, and a big rejection basically last Monday, I think. Yeah, last Monday as well, where the world became chaotic. Okay, where the world became chaotic, wars were being started, etc., etc. And price was just going to reverse on us. But where did it reverse to? So we had this 1 day gap over here. This one has been closed. So we're removing this, calling it a close. Close. We're going to remove this. We're going to remove this. Why? Otherwise, if I zoom out, I have too many closed text. Basically. So this trend line, we are going to change it to the next high. So this is the new trend line happening. Okay, from over here to over here, and then drag it along like so. I'm going to keep the old trend lines from over here. Why? Because this could still, it is still out of the trend. It could still have enough fuel now to push up and break this trend line even. And we're going to dive in on what it did over here, because maybe on the daily it might not hit perfectly, but if we zoom in on the hourly, we might see a response which is in our favor. So I'm going to draw a line here, call this the 1 hour, and I'm going to make it red. I'm gonna copy it and place one over here as well, because this is also a gap. And then we have the green line. Okay. Let's move to the right. And here we see we had a fill on the 1 hour from the top. Okay. So these 2 points, these 2 bottoms, were our entries, possible entries, for example. And if we zoom in on the 50-minute, maybe, can I look back further? There we go. We can even drag it down a slightly bit, there and there. Let's go to the right. See that we had a nice response over here. So placing this long over here on the bottom one from the 50-minute, we're going to zoom out on the daily now. And then on the daily, it is skeptical. We needed to wait for confirmation. So let's say we were entering over here, stop loss below that gap. Then this could have been your entry. If you are long in this now, then this is your first daily gap. Yeah, so let's say we are long from over here on the black line, sorry, the red lines. Drag that stop loss nicely there. Our target will be over here for this trend only. So this trend only, we can look for something like this to happen. But if you're going to zoom out even more, basically what we want here now is we created that high, that low, sorry, that high, that low, and this high. Then we created a new low, which is a higher low. This is our indication still, okay? It's still our indication that we might move up and make a higher high. Okay. So dragging these 2 points, we create a higher low. So what we need to do now is to make a higher high. And on the daily, this is your important price. On the daily, we need to see a close above for continuation up. Okay. Curve. There's nothing wrong with curves, by the way, guys. Just saying. Okay, we're going to copy, remake. That's a high. The more you make analysis for yourself, the more you're going to play along with it, the better your TAs will become. Just like this. For some people it might look messy. However, I'm looking basically on these. This is the first things, these are the first things that I'm looking at. The highs, the lows, the high and the low. Where we had a change, we created the low. So this is our lower low. We had a lower high. It is still very, very possible, if we are going to get rejected on this daily and on the trend line here, it is very possible for price to do this and then go down. Why? Because we are in a downtrend. Indication, confirmation. Now that we had this low over here, which means that we are in a indication phase again, it's not determined that this price will go up now because it made that first higher low. We made a first lower high. Sorry, we made a first lower low indication. We made a lower high. Is our confirmation. Okay, so it closing over here and pushing up could mean that we're changing character again, and that eventually we will see this happening. However, based looking on this indication confirmation, this price could potentially go down to over here. And if we are going to look at this bullish, this is the way to look. If we are going to look on it bearish, this is the way to look. Okay. This is really the way to look on it on the bearish side. Because now, because this is downtrending, okay, we are trading with the trend. So this is only a bounce. So I'm bearish on this now that I'm diving into it a bit more. Okay. And taking this together with the war and all of the stuff that's happening, market structure, I really think that if things are going to continue and things are going to escalate, because I just heard that Iran has been attacking American bases as well now as a response from America attacking Iran, we could potentially see that the price will go down even more. Okay, and we need to be prepared for it. So on Bitcoin we are bearish. Many drawings here. On Bitcoin I'm still bearish because originally price has to go down here or somewhere over here. So this is where Bitcoin needs to go in order to push further up and make progression. And obviously on altcoins now as well. So it could potentially drop down even further. Like we're always looking for the long positions, and that's very smart for spot traders, which will basically buy the dip, sell the high. That's basically how everyone wants to do it. This is how I did it in December 23. I bought it at $33,000. So I bought Bitcoin over here or over here. Price went down. However, I'm spot trading, so you're not losing it. The price is just going to go down a bit. I'm still holding the coins. Can't get liquidated unless it goes to zero. And eventually I sold it this year at 99. So over here I sold it, where it created a all-time high and it kept pushing. There was no data left. I was content with the profits that I've made. It was basically from point A to B, 350%. So I tripled. I tripled my income. It's like I tripled the whole trade basically. Sometimes you just need to be content with the profits that you can have, instead of, yeah, it will go higher. Because yes, it did go higher. I'm not frustrated. I made 3 times the price that I entered, and then eventually price went down, and I'm like, okay, I'm glad that I closed the trade over here. Because if I did it over here, then the difference would have been different. Like the profit would have been worse with 20%. Okay, I'm still bearish on this. And especially with the war. However, right now, this trend has been broken. We can look for a retest on the gap, this gap, but I prefer somewhere over here. So this trend line gets hit again. That's what we need, okay? And if I'm looking at it this way and I dragged it along towards the right, we could see something like this maybe, and then down again. Because we need to get that lower high again. We made the lower low. This is our, so over here we have to go indication, confirmation, continuation of that trend. Now we need a higher, a lower high again, and then continuation down, like so. Okay. This is what we need. This is how we want it. So yeah. And we okay, we did have a close above. So this is most likely to be happening soon. Just another push up, perhaps hit a 1-day gap or this 1-day gap, and then continuation down. Something we need to look for, okay? Trade safe, especially with times like this. I'm going to close the stream here. Trade safe. If you're in a trade, use that stop loss and be happy with any profits nowadays, okay? News has too much impact, and we don't trade on news. However, news lately has a bunch of impact. Okay, so just looking at market opening at 15:30, look what it did on Friday market open. Going to dive into the 15-minute basically. Here's where market opens, right over here, and this happened in the next hour. So in the next hour from market open, news got out, almost 2% down in an hour. And then over here as well, on Sunday this time, where it already dropped before the same times. But it's just insane on how fast price goes sometimes with market openings. And this is just a New York session, by the way. Okay. If you have any coins on request or anything, Discord is down below. It's all for free. There's nothing more to really say. You know, it's all for free. Look on all the links below. You can win $2,400. You can also register on BitUnix, the exchange there where we trade on. Also, take a look on the website. It is currently international, which means that in any region, whenever you are in Netherlands, it will be in Netherlands. If it will be in the US, it will be in English for you automatically, okay? So that's that. Discord is for free. These TAs I'm posting as well on the Discord, all for free. And I update on it as well. Okay. Wow. Big push from CBCN as well. Nice. I'm going to dive into this later. Didn't make it higher high, so it's not a potential long here. In fact, it might be a potential short, looking at it now. Just a quick one. So it didn't make it higher high. No, it didn't. It didn't make it higher high over here. Now price got down, made a lower low. Now it's going to retrace. Hit that level one more time. It's also a gap. Price continuation down. Close this gap. Potential short. Paper trade it is. Okay. Let's screenshot this and see tomorrow what it's going to do. Beep, beep. Let's call it a TP. TP. Okay. Yeah. Let's paper trade this coin real quick. 50 minute. 50 minutes, 50 minutes. Let's do a paper trade here. If you want to get the result on this tomorrow, I will see how it goes, how it went. Streams paper trade on the 15-minute smiley. Let's see tomorrow how it went. Good night. All right, guys. So for those that were in the stream, thanks. If you haven't liked it yet, make sure to give this stream a like. The more likes and the more views, the more people that will show that this stream will be shown to. Oh, I was on the... Sorry. This is what I'm looking. So this gap and this gap, it's a paper trade for now. Because we had it didn't make that higher high here. And we got our lower low based on this one over here. So we need to hit that level and this gap one more time for the paper trade to continue. And this is our target. Sorry, my face is in the way, I know. Like I said, make sure to give this stream a like, and the more views I get, the more likes I get, the more people that will be notified about my streams. Until then, I will meet you guys on the next one. Just drop by on the Discord and say hello. Hello. Okay? Alright guys, have a good one.